Well, thank you all for coming. This is so exciting to see so many new faces and new people. I hope all of you live in our wonderful little city, but I know some of you do not. But if you could, you probably would. Why would you want to live anywhere else? Well, Julie did come and brought these creative things for our snacks. And Bridget, she's a wonderful gal to work with. And it was just a pleasure to bring this all together. So I do want to introduce a few people that I have known almost all my life. The first one is my friend Sharon. Sharon McRae Palian lived down the street from us on Inverness, and I have known Sharon since first grade. And we still see each other. Yesterday, we had a Zoom call with 5 of us from first grade for one of the girls' birthdays. So that is really special that we can do that. And we get together in person when we can. We are going to get together this summer in August, I think, for an all-city reunion. And another one is Brian Weideman. Where's Brian? Brian, I'm going to talk about his father later. His father played a very big role in our city. And you might remember his brother, Bruce. Bruce was on city council. He followed his father's footsteps. But Brian is here with us tonight, which I am thrilled. I had a conversation with Brian on Sunday afternoon, and we just reminisced about things that had happened way back then. And Ann Nichols has lived here and went to Whitfield for a long time. And another one is Dave Walls, who's in the back. And let me show you. Dave has had this for 2 years because of COVID. But what year was this, Dave?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure.
Anyway, Life magazine came out and took pictures. There are 2 booklets here of the kids at a camp. It was the first winter camping that had taken place maybe in Michigan. I don't know where. Life magazine took these pictures to put in a magazine, in the Life magazine, but we have never found the magazine. But the pictures are wonderful. So Dave is in some of these pictures, he was able to identify who some of the kids are, which is really fabulous. And then he also brought me pictures of his family home with he and his brother together in the backyard. So if any of you have those pictures, I would love that, because it's wonderful to hear and learn about our homes. So let me put this away. You are welcome to look at that if you like. I have scanned all those, and they're all in my computer. So welcome, and we're so glad that so many of you are here tonight. If you have any questions, there's 3x5 cards and pencils back there. You can write them down, or you can raise your hand and ask. Tonight, I'm going to give you some bite-sized snippets about our city. I'm not going to tell you the whole story, because we want to do this again. As Bridget said, we might do this 12 times, and I'll tell you a little bit. Stretch it out. Well, we have 100 years as a village and 75 years as a city, so we can do that, because there's so many different subjects. So if there's something you want to learn about, let me know, and I'll try to find out more about it. So let me see if this is going to work. A lot of people ask me about where I grew up and how long I have lived here. This is a house, as it shows, on Inverness. This is a house my parents bought in 1938, and I was born a year later. So get your computer out, and you can figure out how old I am. But Sharon lived right down the street from me, and I should show you some pictures. My dad had a pup tent from his Boy Scout years. And so we slept in that out in our backyard once in a while in the summertime. We went barefoot all summer long. And my sister reminded me, the roads were not paved. It was dirt and rocks. And we had to condition our feet in the summertime because we'd worn shoes to school all year. So anyway, that was a little off the side. But that's where I started. And then in 1955, actually, my parents built this house on Parkway. They bought 2 lots, and I really don't know who's living there now, but it is a family. And so it's got a real big, beautiful backyard. My mother loved to garden. She grew up on a farm, and it was just beautiful. So I lived there until I went to Michigan State. And then I did teach in various places, so I wasn't living at home except in the summertime. Then in 1970 in December or November, we came out to visit my parents, who were still living in the house on Parkway. We came out for my birthday, and we drove by the lake, and this house was for sale. Well, we walked right in the door. Pete called the realtor. We went right then to see the house. It was amazing. Pete walked in the front door, kept walking, and went out on the front porch, right on the lake, and he said, "This is it." He didn't even see the rest of the house. But we have lived there 51 years. So this is what it looks like now. And we had a fire in 2008, and so we did change the color of the house. And a few things, but not many inside. So it still looks like it did 50 years ago, mainly. So now, I was going to ask some questions, but I put the answers up here, which doesn't make sense, does it?
Thank you.
But I showed this picture last week at the council meeting, and I said, "Do you know who this is?" And somebody said they thought it was the president. No. Merrill B. Mills is the one that bought 300 acres from where Telegraph is now all the way to Beverly. He bought all of the land in Sylvan Lake in 1891. He was a real entrepreneur. He really knew how to buy and sell, and probably a lot of other things. So this is, I don't know if any of you have an abstract. They look like this. There are lots and lots of pages. If you do, you're very fortunate, because it goes back to 1825 when the government owned the property. And this one even has a map of where the location is of the property. It also has pictures. This house is on Beverly, on the corner of Nolson, and it has a map, but it does show that it goes back to 1825, and I'm losing things. So here we go. Anyway, if you have that, they're really valuable as far as research goes. So you can see that he purchased all this land for $6,000, and it would be $190,000 today, and even that doesn't seem like a whole lot. But, well, then, being an entrepreneur and wanting to make as much money as he could, he found 5 of his friends, and they went into cahoots together. I shouldn't say it that way. They went together, and he kept the most shares, but there was a secretary and treasurer and other people. So they developed the Sylvan Lake Improvement Association. So that I got from one of these abstracts, which is really interesting. Oops, okay. So the first thing they did was to build the Sylvan Lake Inn. They decided they were going to spend, and that property, that inn was right here where we are right now. In fact, when Rob Gallus was digging the foundation for this building, he found rocks that were used for the foundation of the inn. So we know that it was right here where we are. So the inn, they said they were going to spend $12,000. Well, before long, they ended up spending $25,000 to build the inn because it must have been really fancy. It was like a resort coming out into the country. You know, so many people lived in cities, and this was a real treat to come out to the country. People like to fish, they like to walk, they would boat, use boats out here. They even had a bowling alley and a billiard parlor in the inn, and they had riding stables so people could ride out here. It was really something. So this is a picture of an advertisement that they used. We have one copy of a booklet that was made for advertising. And so all of these pictures that we have are from that one little booklet. So this tells how much it would cost to stay here. Wouldn't that be fun? And I'm going to assume that this would include your meals, because are there any restaurants? Is there any way to get to a restaurant? No. So they would be here. They would be, I don't want to say stuck, but they would be here for the length of time that they decided to stay. So it would really be, for us, a real bargain to come and stay at the Sylvan Lake Inn. This is a floor plan of the first floor, and you can see the big dining room, and they had a billiards parlor and a slot machine, which was a no-no at that time. And I do have some of these pictures way in the back, too, so you can look at. This is the first floor, and you can see how many rooms that they would rent out, and the stairs. Of course, there were no elevators then. Oops. I thought I had the second floor. On the second floor where the rooms are, there was even a bathroom. Because what were you people using way back then? An outhouse. My mother grew up with an outhouse. And so did somebody else that lives here in Sylvan Lake. And we had outhouses in Sylvan Lake. When I was little, in fact, Brian probably remembers this. Across the street from you, there was an outhouse? Maybe? Yeah, we were talking about it, my friends and I, and there was an outhouse. So we had one at our cottage. We never did have indoor plumbing. Remember, Sharon? Yeah, up in an outhouse? No, not until we built the new, okay. So anyway, the reason I wanted to show you this one is you can see the horse and buggy in the front, right here. That horse and buggy would be used to collect the people that came out here on the inner urban, because that is how they got to Sylvan Lake. Does anybody know what an inner urban is? The trolley, yes. They would, and so I'm going to tell you about that too. So they would come out here to boat, peaceful and tranquil, and no motorboats, just float around the lake. And here's Pickerel Bay. Now, I'm not really sure where that is, but let me show you the next map. This is a map put out by Michigan Military Academy. Does anybody know where that was?
St. Mary's.
St. Mary's, very good. Yes, it's now St. Mary's, but it was the Michigan Military Academy until 1908. It was the West Point of the West. It was a very exclusive school, I think. Is that right, Bruce? So you can see on this map, the lower part, this part was called Pickerel. This part of the lake was Pickerel. This side was called Timber when this map was developed. And I can't remember exactly what years. The Michigan Military Academy was from 1858 to 1908. So it was before Merrill Mills bought the property that it was called Pickerel and Timber. Then when he bought it, it was Sylvan. So that's kind of interesting. So I have several maps that show how Sylvan Lake was developed. So you can see the round part up at the top, the big circle, that's where the inn was. And you can see the road went around the inn and then out to the end. And the people on this side of the point have like double lots, and the people on the left side have just single, smaller lots. But it's pretty much the same as it was. And then you can see that not very much of the city is developed yet. So then now a little bit more is, and this is more of it.
So what year was it subdivision to then?
Oh, gosh, I'm not sure. Probably before 1910. And this is like the final one of this part of Sylvan. We have other maps from the other part of Sylvan, but this is, so you can even look on this map and find where your property is, and the numbers on those lots are the same that you have, that you still use today. Like when you get things from the city and about your property, those numbers would be on it. So, and even on this side, we have Merrill Mills' signature on this map, which is kind of neat. In fact, the boat club had his will, and they had it in their safe. And I had to sign a document when I borrowed it so I could copy it and then give it back to them. But it is very interesting. So, yes, Merrill Mills' will. So this is what he planned. He wanted 1,300 building lots. Fortunately, that didn't come to fruition because that would be very tiny lots, all squished together. Now we have 813 homes in Sylvan Lake. So if we had 1,300, that would be a whole lot more. So thank heavens. I don't know how that changed, but we're fortunate. But he did plan out the roads, and most of the roads have the same names, and they're still in the same configuration. You could probably find your own, where your own home is. And he wanted to have 6 public parks. And I'm going to tell you about one of those later. And then the hotel and the schoolhouse. The schoolhouse was Whitfield School that was already here. Whitfield School was built in 1852. Isn't that amazing? And it serviced children from Bloomfield, West Bloomfield, Waterford, and Pontiac. And it was called a fractional school. It was called a fractional school until it was incorporated into the city of Pontiac. Brian, are you questioning that? Oh, okay. So Mr. Houston, we live in Mr. Houston's house. He was the principal of Whitfield School from 1927 to 1947. And he was still the principal when it was a fractional school. So some of the children came in horse and buggy, some of them walked to school, but Sylvan Lake really wasn't here then. It wasn't developed at all, but children came from these 4 areas, and that's why they called it a fractional school. So that was over on Orchard Lake Road. It was on a triangle piece of land, and actually it was Dave Walls that gave me a picture of the very first school. Thank you, Dave. That is a great picture. It's a one-room school, but I'm going to talk about Whitfield School at another one of these programs, so you have to come back. So, pardon?
You're just leaving us hanging out there.
Yeah, that's right. So, and there actually was never a depot for the trolley here in Sylvan Lake. But a lot of people think that that house on Cheldingham and Lakeview was the depot. It was not. There was not a depot for the trolley in Sylvan Lake, according to Brian Golden, who is the expert on trolleys. If you want to know more, I'm going to tell you a little bit about trolleys, but he is the expert, and if you missed his talk, he was here in last August when we had our big party and celebration, and he talked about the interurban, and he is an expert, and anything you ever wanted to know, he will tell you. So, this is a way to get people to come out here. This was an advertising from Merrill Mills and his organization. It would cost you 40 cents to ride the trolley from Detroit out here to Sylvan Lake, and for the day. And then he promised for 40, yes, it does say 40 cents. The terms of the sale, $10 down, $15 within 10 days. The balance is easy. 5 handsome cottages will be built and given away absolutely free to purchasers of a lot as soon as 150 lots are sold. And you may get one.
He was
Well,
a marketing expert.
Yeah. I don't think that happened, but I don't know really. Anyway. So, unfortunately, this beautiful inn burned down 10 years later. So this is really cute the way this was in the Oakland, not the Oakland, the Pontiac paper. It wasn't called the Oakland Press then. Pontiac paper. Pontiac Daily Press? Okay. It says, dead when it was born and growing stiffer with rigor mortis in each succeeding year, the Sylvan Lake Inn was cremated today. Is that a riot? The structure was erected about a decade ago by M.B. Mills when he and other Detroiters were full of enthusiasm over the project of establishing a great summer resort between this city and Orchard Lake. It cost about $25,000. I can't, it's so shiny. It was only insured for $12,000. Yes. So many people tried to make a go of it, but it just didn't work. They even brought people from Chicago out here to see to come and stay. But anyway, it didn't make it. But it was a beautiful structure, and wouldn't we love to have it here today? You know, I mean, we like this building. We love this building. But something Victorian would really be nice for me. Yes, it does say he sold liquor without a license and kept a slot machine. That must have been against the law at that time. So we actually have the paper, the newspaper. And this is an 1896 map. And one thing that's on here, this line right here, this one, is where the train actually went through. The Canadian National, is that right? I'm not positive. You know where our trail is? That's where the train went. We had a big, in fact, Sharon and Brian will remember, we used to wait at the tracks and we would yell, chalk, chalk, and they would throw us big pieces of chalk like this that they used on the railroad. So it was a fun thing to remember. Ann, you must probably remember that too.
I remember getting the chalk, yeah.
Yeah, they would throw it off the train to us. So that was really fun. And it kept going until Pete and I were dating, and we had been at my parents' house, and we were leaving the village, and we drove up Inverness right by City Hall, and had the radio on, we were talking, didn't pay any attention, and the train went by. We could have been hit that easily. So the train was still going 50 years ago through Sylvan Lake. When they put the trail in, and that's been over 20 years, right? So they took the tracks up and built the train. But to get people to come to the inn, Merrill Mills had to figure out a way to get them here. So he extended the tracks from Pontiac out here to Sylvan Lake. And this is again from the abstract, but shows what he did. And this is a map from the inn booklet that shows that you can see where the trolley went. If you can imagine the trolley starting in the city of Detroit, going up Woodward, and Woodward is a boulevard because of the trolley. It goes all the way to Pontiac, and that's where it ended. But then Merrill Mills had his idea to extend it out here to Sylvan Lake, to bring his patrons out here. And then they would take that buggy and pick them up, right up, at the corner, right by Memorial Park, and bring them down here. Because it was still the time when the ladies were wearing long dresses. They wouldn't want to walk in the mud. There were no paved streets. So it was a good idea. And you can see, I believe that this line right here is where the trolley went, from Detroit, out here. And then, let me show you. You can see on the front of this train, this was Merrill Mills trolley. It says, it starts off Detroit Orchard Lake Limited. Then Oak Grove. Who knows where Oak Grove is? Anybody? If you're driving down Orchard Lake Road and you are ready to turn right on Pontiac Trail, there's a hill off to the right. You'll see a sign, the road sign says Oak Grove. It goes up the hill. And you used to be able to go up and down on the other side, but now you can't do that. So there are beautiful homes up there, but that was Oak Grove. So Merrill Mills brought the trolley to Sylvan Lake, and then other entrepreneurs took it from Sylvan Lake through Keego Harbor, Orchard Lake, and down to Farmington, close to where Orchard Lake Road is now. And then when it got to Farmington, it turned left on Grand River, thank you, and went down to Detroit. So it made a big circle. So you could come out here for the day, and it would take an hour when you left Detroit to come to Sylvan Lake. Both my dad and Pete's dad remember doing that as kids, coming out here with their parents. So the trolley was gone in 1928. It stopped running because of, well, you can guess, because the automobile. And it took over, which is too bad, because wouldn't we enjoy mass transit right now? Yes, we certainly would. So.
Helen Jane, what power did it go?
Well, electricity, and they did bring electricity out here to the inn, which was a new thing. Yes.
Did they have wires up above?
Yes, especially. Well, now, I'm sorry, but Brian would have to. Yeah, it would be kind of like a streetcar. Another thing that Brian would tell you, the expert, is that pretend that my parents lived in Pontiac and my children wanted to visit their grandparents for the day. I could go out and wave down the trolley, the conductor, and ask him to take my kids on the train and watch for my mother, because she's going to be waiting for them along the tracks, and they could spend the day with Grandma, and then at the end of the day they would come back home. And it would be safe for them to do that. Wouldn't that be neat? Another thing, sometimes the lady would be making something in the kitchen and she ran out of eggs. She'd ask the conductor, "Oh, would you stop at the store and get me a dozen eggs and bring them home to me?" I mean, it was a different time. It must have been wonderful, to live like that. Maybe the younger people don't believe I would understand that. But anyway, you can see how the lady is dressed. Yeah, this is early picture. So again, I just showing you the buggy that would pick them up at the corner. And that's why Garland is only a boulevard to Pontiac Drive. And the rest of Garland is not a boulevard until you get down by Lakeland and Woodland. But the trolley did go that way. In fact, the trolley went, and Gino's, where is she? Irene. Yeah. Right in the parking lot of Gino's restaurant, you can see there's a curve, and that is where the trolley curved to go down Cass Lake Road. And if on the east side of Cass Lake Road is another boulevard. When you're driving south on Orchard Lake Road, and you look to the left past the cleaners, there is a boulevard. The trolley went down that boulevard. And then it got out to Orchard Lake Road and continued on down to Farmington. So isn't it interesting, all these little details that you wouldn't know about? Oh, this is Mr. Durfee. His son, Roy, was in our class. Here he is standing on the tracks at Oakwood and Garland. And the reason I know where it is because my house is in the background. Isn't that something? On the left is my house, on the right is the Pfeffer's house, way back when. So one of the things he liked to do was to he'd hide under the seats in the trolley, just for fun. Anyway, he was a character. He had a great, big, huge motorcycle he'd drive around Sylvan Lake. Anne is giving me a funny look. Anyway, this map shows you where the interurban went around this part of Michigan. You could go almost anywhere. It's amazing. So this is a better picture. You could even go to the other side of the state. And it was just a pleasurable way to travel.
So that was to Ontario.
Yeah, that was, yeah. Yeah. Okay, now this is when we had fun when we were growing up. This picture is probably from the 40s. And Maureen Morrill, the sister-in-law of one of the wife of one of these boys, was in our class too. This is a family of three boys and a girl. The girl is from a different family in this picture, but this was our only beach until I was at least 10 years old. We called it the Old Beach. It's the beach on Lakeview, and that beach is still there. We had a dock out in the lake. We could swim out there, or we must have had to swim out there because we jump off and we didn't want it to be too shallow. But that's where we swam, and it's really nice that that beach is still there for the people that live on that side of the. Oh, yes.
We were the first ones to swim that season.
Yes. Yeah, Sharon is saying when we were teenagers, junior high. Well, we were teenage. Anyway, we decided on the way home from school that we were going to go swimming, and we wanted to be the first ones in the lake that season. So we called the Oakland Press, and we thought, oh, we'll just run in a little bit. The photographer insisted that we get all wet. And it was frigid. It was in April. It was really cold. But we had our picture in the paper. Anything?
Do you still have the picture?
I do.
It's not in the PowerPoint?
It's pardon?
It's not in your PowerPoint?
No, it's not. Next time. Yeah, the next one. Yeah, the next one. In fact, one funny thing about that, some serviceman, they used to send the papers to the men in service, wrote to me. I don't know whether I saved that letter or not. Do you remember? But anyway, that was kind of funny. Anyway, this is where Brian Weideman's dad comes into the picture. This is really too much for you to read, but let me go on to the picture. This is our this is our Ferndale Beach that we now use. Well, I just found this map last fall in one of the books at City Hall. And I knew that there were 2 canals, but I didn't know there were 5 canals coming from the lake almost to Ferndale. So you can see, I need a pointer, right up there at where the humps out like this, you can see there are 5 canals going from the lake to Ferndale. This is a picture of Sherry Houston. She grew up in the house I live in now, out down at the lake. This was our park, our Ferndale Park, in about 1940. Can you imagine?
That's the big beach.
That's where the beach is, yes. This is where the kids swim. You can see the curve there? That's still there. But look at that. So Brian Weideman's dad, Miss Howard Weideman, was on city council at that time. And, well, he told me this story, which I had not heard before, but Brian's dad was a member of the Sylvan Lake Men's Club. And these men were forward-thinking. They wanted to see bigger things happen for Sylvan Lake. You correct me if I'm wrong, Brian. And so they, there was a city council, and the men on city council just were, everything was going along fine. They didn't need to make any changes at all. Well, the five men got together and decided they were going to get themselves elected to the city council, and they did. And they took over, and they made many new improvements. And Brian's dad was the mayor, and it was his idea to fill in this land and clean it up and make it into our beautiful park. So this is one of the canals, and Mr. Morrill took a lot of these old pictures way back then. These are 2 of the boys that you saw at the swimming beach back then. I have a track too. So this is one of the canals. Oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ruth. Many of you know Mrs. James, who was the president of one of the initiators of the Sylvan Lake Garden Club. She started the garden club in 1939, and she was 103 when she passed away. Mrs. James would go down to the park, down to the canals, and she would dig up water lilies and other plants that were growing in the water and take them home and plant them in her yard. So we're going to go look and see if there might be some still there, because I know where the house is, so it's possible that some things are still growing. But anyway, it was marshy. You can see what a mess it was. So this is Mr. Weideman and Bruce and his wife, Rita, and Mrs. Weideman, who lived on Avondale. In fact, there's Brian's granddaughter is living there today, so it's been in the Weideman family for a very long time. Anyway, so first of all, they had to clear away all that brush and all that stuff, the tree limbs and all the brush there, and then they had to fill it in. Well, Mr. Weideman found somebody that was in training to learn how to use a steam shovel or a scoop, bulldozer. So they could fill that in. So they just paid for, what, Brian? What did they pay? They didn't have to pay the man.
To live down there. I don't know about
Yeah. So the dirt they took from a hill behind City Hall, which I don't remember that at all, but I was very small at that time, so I don't remember that. But they took the dirt from behind City Hall and brought it down here and filled in our park. Isn't that amazing? And they didn't have to pay very much. Let me see if I don't know. Anyway, I'll have to.
So, Helen, are you saying they took this, there was one bulldozer that went and would scoop up dirt, drive it down here, dump it, and
Yeah.
go back and forth and back and forth, and that's how they filled in all of Ferndale Park?
Right. Well, I don't think he did it one trip at a time. They probably had a truck to put it in and then bring it down here and dump it. But it must have been quite a job to fill in all that water. And nowadays, it would be probably prohibitive. You know, the DNR would not go for that. So, this is a nice picture of Mr. Weideman. And, oh, I know, the other thing. Mr. Wright, I didn't bring a picture of this, but there was a store at the end of Garland. I'm going to talk about Sharon's father. There was a store, the general store was at the end of Garland, and Garland turned in front of that store and went out to Telegraph. Do you know that Telegraph was not built until 1927? I was shocked when I heard that. Anyway, you used to be able to go out to Telegraph from Garland, and it was Mr. Weideman's idea to close that off so that cars could not drive down Garland. And let me tell you, we can all thank Mr. Weideman for that. Yes, because there was...
They county member cars, once they had measurement of 5,000 they had, in a day they had 5,000 cars.
That would be too much. Well, on the council at that time, I think there were 5 men. Anyway, one of them was Mr. McRae, Sharon's father. She remembers this. There was one dissenter. He wanted that to stay open because his job was on Telegraph down, right down where that big brick building is. And that meant he would have to go around to get to his job. But anyway, that's just a kind of a funny side story. So this is the dock that we used. We had to learn how to swim out to the dock. It was a big dock, and it had a diving board. But the city gave us swimming lessons. It was wonderful. We really learned how to swim in the lake with swimming lessons. And this is such a cute picture. All the kids lined up on the dock. And Chuck Pfeffer lives across the street from us. Chuck, he's not here, I don't think. So this is our play structure that was just put in 2004. So it's almost 20 years, 18 years ago. They had 2 beach balls, they were parties, they had raffles, they had all kinds of ways to raise money for the structure. And this, on Memorial Day, Barbara Monteith, who went to school with us, says she couldn't go swimming until Memorial Day. That was the opening of summer, that's when you could go swimming. And these are the fathers that are putting in that raft. I bet you've never seen this picture. This picture is from where the boat club is, going north. And this is before they had grass along the edge of the water. And that's what caused it to flood like this. So thank heavens they thought of doing that. In fact, Brad Conkey told Bridget that one of the reasons that there is a road along the lake is so all of the people in Sylvan Lake can use the lake and feel part of the community, which I had never thought of before. I think that's a wonderful concept. So and people do just come down and watch the sunset. It's really fabulous. So lots of wonderful things have happened in our little city. This is an old picture on the left. This is one that Mr. Morrill took. And then Shane arranged to have this one taken last winter. Isn't that neat? But they used to do, in fact, when we moved here, ice boating, we bought an ice boat. We ended up giving it away and needed some work. But when we moved here, every night at 11 o'clock, the snowmobiles would take off across the lake. Oh, it was awful. They'd leave the boat club, get on their snowmobiles, and go home. Was not fun. But anyway, here is somebody skate sailing. That's a new thing I've never seen. And here they've been out ice fishing. We didn't have very many ice fishermen this summer either. And this is at the corner, right down here, Ferndale and Garland, or Ferndale and Pontiac Drive. No houses. And this is last year, ice skating. That is one thing. I want to thank John Farms and Shane Doyle for clearing off the ice every weekend in the summertime. It's just wintertime, sorry. It's fabulous that the community has come together in this way to make it just a wonderful place to live. So I'm going to stop there, but I want to remind you, this is just the first of a few of these, maybe 12. We'll see.